listened to him nightly. At the beginning of our remarkable intercourse he laid certain mandates upon me, which resulted, as you see, in my decorating him with these precious stones. I felt bound to obey him, whatever he dictated, but of late he has told me. The old man began to shudder and tremble. While he had been speaking to me he had been gazing at the idol. Now he walked a few steps away and turned his back on it. "Sooner or later I must obey him," he said in a feeble voice, "but the thing is driving me crazed. "What is it?" I asked. "Tell me, I beseech you." "I cannot. It is too awful. It relates to the one I love best in the world. The sacrifice is too horrible, and yet I am drawn to it. I am drawn to the performing of an awful deed by a terrible power. Ask me no more, Mr. Bell. I see by your face that I have your pity." "You have, truly," I answered. I had scarcely said the last words before the door of the gallery was opened, and Miss Thesiger, Bagwell, and Laurier appeared. Miss Thesiger went straight to her uncle's side and laid her hand on his shoulder. "Must you stay up any longer?" she asked in a gentle voice. "I heard you walking about last night. You were restless and did not sleep. Do go to bed now, you seem so tired. I know these gentlemen will excuse you," she added, glancing from Laurier to me. "Certainly," said Laurier. "I should recommend Mr. Thesiger to retire at once. He looks quite worn out." "I shall go presently, said Thesiger in a somewhat curt voice. "Leave us, Helen. There's a good child. Go, my dear." "Go, Helen. Don't irritate him," I heard Bagwell say. She gave a quick, despairing glance from one man to the other, then, turning, left the room. "Now, Mr. Thesiger," I said, "will you not grant me the favour of a séance?" Mr. Thesiger remained gravely silent for a moment. Then he said, "By virtue of your power as a medium, you may be able to hear the voice, and so convince Dr. Laurier of its reality." He then proceeded to go through some elaborate operations, and finally kneeling at the altar, began to speak Hindustani. It was about the strangest scene I had ever witnessed, and though I stood almost at his elbow, I could hear no sound whatever but his own voice. "Siva will not speak to-night," he said, rising. "There must be someone here whose influence is adverse. I cannot hear him. It is strange." He looked puzzled, and more relieved than otherwise. "You will go to bed now, sir," said Bagwell. "You look very tired." "I am," he replied. "I will leave my friends with you, Jasper. You will see that they have all they want." He bade Laurier and me a courteous good night, nodded to his nephew, and left the room. "This is the most extraordinary phase of mental delusion I ever heard of," I said. "If you will permit me, Mr. Bagwell, I will examine this idol more particularly." "You can do so if you please," he said, but he did not speak in a cordial tone. "Examine it to your heart's content," he continued a moment later. "Only pray don't disarrange it. He seems to know by instinct if it is touched. Bah! It is sickening. Shall we go into another room, gentlemen?" Watching his face carefully, I resolved to make my examination in private, and now followed him into the smoking room. We stayed there for a short time, talking in a desultory manner, and soon afterwards retired for the night. End of Part 1 of Chapter 5.